This is Going Under, Anesthesia Answered with Dr. Brian Schmutzler. I'm Vahid Sadrzadeh, and we're brought to you by the Butterfly Network.
All right, I'm going to let you in on something that's completely changed the way that I practice. I've been using butterfly probes for years. It's a portable ultrasound that plugs right into my compatible smartphone or tablet, so I can start scanning at the bedside in seconds. If you've used the older versions, or even if you're new to the handheld ultrasound game, let me tell you why this IQ3 is a game changer and really impressive. First off, having an ultrasound that literally fits in my pocket means I can move faster, whether it's vascular access, procedural guidance, or just getting real time insights for my patients. And the tech inside this tiny device is pretty incredible. Biplane imaging lets me see two axes at once, huge for procedural guidance, and honestly, a great tool for learners. The new needle out of plane preset even shifts the scan plane digitally so I can see the needle tip sooner, which makes a real difference when precision matters. And the image quality, honestly, this IQ3 holds up to some of the high end cart based systems I've used, which is impressive for something this portable. If you're looking for a device that supports your practice, I can't recommend the Butterfly IQ3 enough. And right now, they're running a special offer. You can get $750 off the latest IQ3. Check it out at butterflynetwork.com.
So, thanks to Butterfly Network for sponsoring this podcast, and we're back at it. Season 5 is underway. Brian, where's your hat? I,
And
I thought you were gonna break. I thought you were gonna break out the IU hat today.
we
There
got
we
it.
go.
Don't you worry about it. And don't you
We'll
worry about it.
we'll
Go
wait
Hoosiers.
for final predictions coming up. And I was right in my semifinal predictions, by the way.
You were.
Uh
I thought I was going to be right with. It looked like Ole Miss was going to win, and then
yeah, you were on the right track there. Not a bad team.
yeah.
Um National championship is Monday, a few days away, but I will talk about that later. What we do want to talk about is the food pyramid.
What's up?
And
It's upside down
oh,
now.
well,
The
yeah.
pyramid they
Sorry.
flipped it.
Sorry, I was doing the old
The
pyramid,
old
right?
one, yeah, the one we learned, yeah.
And
Just to point out to our listeners and viewers, we're remote this evening because we have like a foot of snow on the ground. So I'm comfortably in my house. Vahid, I believe, is comfortably in his house as well. So we're remote this evening.
yeah, I wasn't the smart one that brought my truck to work this morning, so I had to forfeit and do a remote podcast. But
That's right.
um, so the
So the
food
food
pyramid,
pyramid.
the food pyramid for years, right? I mean, we're talking about less fat, the balance, blah blah blah. But then what happened, right? I mean, we're dealing with American society that's dealing with obesity, heart disease, diabetes. And now we're seeing the back end of that. And now all of a sudden we're switching it up and we're like, oh, the people who back then said, hey, maybe we should be following different guidelines were right.
Yep. Yeah. So the food pyramid, I think initially it came out in like the 80s or 90s when we were kids, and the recommendation was like 9 to 11 servings of grains and starches and carbs. Like I don't
A
know,
day.
a day. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of carbohydrates. And then, less of whatever. Less of these foods, less of these foods, and then like saturated fats was way at the top. You shouldn't have any of that. They didn't really talk about sugar or processed food or any of that sort of stuff. And so I think what I've looked a lot at this in the past. There's a lot of stuff out there at the food industry that really I think kind of drove the food pyramid and has driven what we've been eating since like the 60s. That there's subsidies for corn. And we'll get into some of this too. There's subsidies for sugar. There's a big sugar industry, and so I think that was probably part of it. But yeah, so the food pyramid used to have all the grain at the bottom and all the meats and fat at the top. So then now we flipped it, and it's the exact opposite. So now you've got all the meats and proteins and all that sort of stuff at the highest amount, and then everything else less and less and less, and grains at the very bottom. And then they did take a stand on processed foods, saying that you really shouldn't eat processed foods, and pure sugars. And then they changed the recommendation on alcohol to less than it was before. So all things that like any sane person pretty much knows.
Why did they? So, I mean, I know the answer to this question, or probably what you're going to say, But why not consult biology? Why not consult medicine when they're building these food pyramids? Because back in the 80s, 90s, right, you got to know as a physician, as an industry, too many carbs is going to make you fat. Too many
Yep.
carbs make you gain weight, heart lead to heart disease, too many sugars.
Uh-huh.
But I understand probably why they didn't.
Yeah, the biology and medical industry doesn't have the money that the big industry has, right? So the sugar lobby, the corn lobby, the wheat lobby, all these things that we subsidize and then pay a bunch of money to as a society, they want their return on investment. So they're going to recommend all these things. And so, I mean, one thing just logically, right? You think about it. What's one of the most successful diet techniques out there?
I mean, if you're asking
Keto.
me, yeah, keto.
Keto,
Yeah,
right?
keto, less
Keto, right?
carbs, protein.
Almost no carbs. Yeah, almost no carbs, protein. So there's even data out there that if you do keto, it can help with seizures. There are certain people who go pure keto when they have seizures, and it reduces the seizure the frequency of seizures and the severity of seizures. I mean, there's just a ton of things that keto helps with. But you notice people lose weight on keto. Um, and so the theory, and again, I'm not a dietitian, right? We get almost none of this in medical school, but the theory behind it is that fats and proteins, particularly fats, make you more full. They're denser, right? They're just heavier. They're not like carbohydrates, which you process quickly. Spike your blood sugar. Yeah,
And
go
it's
ahead.
not an
Sorry.
instantaneous thing, right? Though it's like if you eat a bowl of rice, you're not going to be full at that second. It's going to take 30 minutes
Right.
to whatever the
Yep.
time is to
To
transition
that.
through your body to get your mind to say, I'm full.
Right, right. But those fats and proteins, big heavy fats and proteins, they spend a little bit more time in your stomach. They're harder to digest, and so again, it gets your brain thinking I'm more full. But also, it doesn't spike your blood sugar. Just like rice, for instance, is a pure carbohydrate. So white rice goes into your stomach. All the carbs start to get processed. You get a huge spike in blood sugar, followed by a huge spike in insulin. And that's like basically the definition of what the cause of diabetes is, right? Now, you've got the flip side of people who say, too much fat causes increased cholesterol, which can cause heart disease. Now, that there's some debate in the literature about that, and we talk a lot about moderation on this
We do.
podcast. So certainly moderate, right? I'm not suggesting anybody go out there and eat 200 grams of saturated fat, right? That does not make any sense whatsoever, and it's not good for your body overall. But to have a higher fat, higher protein diet, lower carb diet is a good recipe for losing weight. And there's some things about timing when you're taking carbs, and you need some carbs if you're going to go run a marathon, right? You used to run marathons, I used to run marathons. You need some carbs for that sort of stuff. But just your average American who has a sedentary job and walks around very little all day long, that you probably don't need 9 to 11 grams or 9 to 11 servings of grains and carbohydrates in a day. Seems a little much.
What's being done, I guess, um, what's being done on a state level, what's being done nationally to balance out in terms of these are the guidelines. We talked a lot about guidelines last week, right?
Yes,
You
we
know, the
did. Yes, we did.
guidelines. What's being done on state and national political levels to counterbalance what we've been taught over the years, right? But still satisfy those industries
Yeah.
that we've made promises to over the years.
Yeah. I mean, so if you think about the sugar industry, there's some other things that goes into the corn industry for sure, ethanol that goes into to gasoline and that sort of stuff. So, I'm not sure exactly because I'm not anyone who negotiates these deals with these companies, but I'm not sure exactly what they're doing to placate them. But I think from top to bottom, the current administration and HHS are really pushing these changes. So like better diet, less processed foods, more exercise. And I think that's trickling down to a lot of states. I know there's several states that are looking at taking things like sugary candies and sodas off the SNAP benefits. Like you have to buy healthier food on SNAP benefits. There's a lot of things I think that are happening nationally. And we talk a little bit. I used to watch The Biggest Loser. So Jillian
Of
Michaels has
course,
become
yes.
She's become a huge advocate. I mean, she was a big health person anyway, but she's become a huge advocate for a lot of this stuff with diet and exercise. And she's got her own a big podcast now and stuff. And this is stuff she's been saying for a long time. And I've read a ton of books in the past about what sugar does to your body, what carbohydrates do to your body versus what proteins and even keto diet. There's a guy named Jason Fung, I think is what his name was, who wrote several books about keto and intermittent fasting, all as a way to get your body in a caloric deficit and to sort of start, processing itself, eating away at the glycogen, and then after that, eating away at the fat. So
So let's look at from both sides of this coin, right? Like the government didn't actually admit they were wrong, right? They just said we're moving on from this.
yeah,
Over the years, meaning like they didn't say like this initially was wrong. They just said, hey, we're changing the guidelines. We're moving on. This
yeah.
is what we recommend now. As a society, though, maybe this fits our society better from our human biology more than it did in the 80s, right? I mean, like from a medical perspective, do you think our
Biology changed? No,
changed right that
no.
much?
I think what adding a bunch of carbohydrates and processed food did is make us fatter and sicker. And now there's no way to deny it, right? Maybe you could deny it in the 70s and 80s. Oh yeah, people are more sedentary because they're watching more TV, or they have more desk jobs. But I think it's very clear now that not much has changed about our society's movement and exercise in the last 30, 40 years, but a lot has changed with our diet. There's no real food in our food anymore, right? Our food is poison basically. And so
Plastic. Yeah.
yeah, well, and I think a lot of that comes from the carbohydrates, right? The what is it that they say that the closer to the the closer to the ground or the closer to the original animal or plant
Source.
that it is, the healthier it is for you, right? So you think about it like um, a strawberry is much more healthy for you than strawberry cola that has like that much strawberry left in it. And carbohydrates, aside from, and you can make all kinds of arguments about wheat, but aside from like wheat, directly eating wheat or corn, which I mean, who eats direct wheat or corn? Everything's processed, right? Most you eat bread, which is processed wheat, right? You eat, corn-based things, but it's not a lot of people are sitting down and eating like corn on the cob and that sort of stuff. So I think you go to meats and fats, you're getting much closer to the source as opposed to the carbohydrates. So
Carnivore diet. I think of the carnivore
yeah,
diet, right? I mean,
yeah,
like it's another diet terminology.
yep, yep.
But speaking of the things that you put in your body and you feed, I mean, if we go back to the our ancestors are
Way back when, yeah,
way like the Mesozoic era, whatever, right? Probably getting my eras wrong, so don't
yes,
come at me at the comments. But going back to when civilization was bare bones, right? They weren't having 10 meals a day. They weren't having 7 meals a day. It was hunter gatherer. You
uh-huh,
get the food, and the food was protein, right?
yep.
I mean,
Protein and fat.
right. They didn't have, I mean, it wasn't even until when, like the 12th, 13th, 14th century, they didn't have starches, right?
No, I mean, yeah, I don't know when all that came about. I mean, you
Forage.
certainly
I mean,
you could pick berries or something like that off of trees, but you're not getting large amounts of that. Yeah, the majority you would the humans would hunt some sort of animal, a buffalo or whatever, right? Kill the buffalo and they'd eat for 3 or 4 days, and then they might not get anything to eat for another week till they went and killed another buffalo. So I mean that kind of gives you the idea of the intermittent fasting as well. Like were we naturally designed to intermittently fast? There's some literature out there that says that A 72-hour fast is like kind of the sweet spot of fasting where you don't go into true starvation where you're like eating muscle, but you get all the benefits of a fast. So, and that would make sense, right? I would imagine that if you're a hunter gatherer, you're probably not eating any significant calories except every 3 or 4 days.
I want to throw a wrinkle at you because the introduction of GLP-1s have made things a little bit interesting, right? Because the whole point of a GLP-1, as correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the physician, is that it basically takes this intermittent fasting idea to another level, right? It
Yeah, it
makes you
makes you
think
feel
it
more full. Yeah.
makes you feel full. So whatever the drugs they're using
Yep.
now,
Yep.
does this change our biology? Does this change our DNA? Does this change how we as a society, look at food and what we eat and how we eat it?
So it may change the expression of genes for certain things. So does it change our biology? Probably. I don't think anybody's done those studies. I don't know if they've been out long enough, but there's probably some change in biology. But I mean, you still come out with the same problem. If you eat, even if you're on a GLP-1 and you eat too much sugar, you can still end up diabetic, right? Or worsening your diabetes because of the spike in blood sugar and the spike in insulin. The other thing is the whole idea of the conversion of these things to fat, right? So, most of the cholesterol you eat gets, or the fat that you eat at some point can get converted into that LDL or HDL cholesterol. Fine, but one of the worst cholesterols for you is triglycerides. And triglycerides are made primarily from excess sugar in your body, right? So you get all these triglycerides from eating sugar. A lot of people have major issues with that. Now, I'm also not saying, like we said, if you have there are certain genetic disorders and there are certain lines of population where if you eat too much, if you get too much LDL cholesterol, you're going to be at high risk for a heart attack.
Mhm.
So there's a certain percentage of the population you probably need to be a little bit more balanced. But for the majority of the population, it is probably better to eat more fats and proteins than it is to eat all those carbohydrates. What happens with the GLP-1s? I guess we'll see. I mean, you can take them as lifelong drugs. That probably helps stave off some of those effects. But again, if all you're eating with your GLP-1s is 1,000 calories a day of carbohydrates, you're not going to build any muscle. That's a big thing, right? We talked about this before that if you don't exercise and eat protein on the GLP-1s, you're going to lose muscle mass as well as fat. If all you're eating is starches and sugars and carbohydrates, you're still going to cause problems.
It's interesting with the GLP-1s because I just don't think there's been enough research done, right? I mean,
No,
eh,
probably not.
and it'll be another generation before a lot of that stuff comes out. Like, is there drawbacks to it? We've kind of done podcasts on that in the past where we've asked those questions. Um, Looking at all of these parameters, right? You're looking at the inverted pyramid. You're
The
also,
memes on that were great.
yeah, they
Have you
were
seen the
funny.
memes on that with all these scientists sitting around going, "How are we going to fix the pyramid?" And then I can't remember who it was. One of the politicians goes, "Just flip it upside down," and all the scientists laugh, and then they do it, and they're like, "Ah,
Yeah.
yeah."
With this inverted pyramid, with all the diet trends that have come out with the GLP-1s, as a physician, what is the right method? What is the right way to do things? What are the right guidelines in
Yeah.
your estimated opinion?
In terms of how to lose weight, I think there's study and study and study that comes out, and I get them across my email all the time of the combination for severe morbid obesity, the combination of a GLP-1 and one of the surgeries, one of the weight loss surgeries. Oftentimes, it's the sleeves, the gastric sleeves. That's probably the best long-term outcomes is doing both. So you pre-treat with a GLP-1, lose a little bit of weight that way, have a gastric sleeve, lose a lot of weight that way, and maintain it with a GLP-1. That's probably what the long-term protocol will be for morbid obesity or ultra morbid obesity. But what's even better is let's not all get obese to begin with, right? I mean, let's take the next generation and instead of our kids starting to get obese when they're 4, 5, 6 years old. Let's have them eat real food, limit the sugars, limit the processed food, make them exercise a little bit and run around, kind of like we did in the 80s and 90s, and then stave off them because there is data that says that if you aren't overweight by the time you're like, I can't remember what the age is, 12 or 13, that your likelihood of being obese and having major weight issues later on is infinitesimally small.
Mm.
So if you can keep kids healthy to that 12, 13, 14 age range, their risk in the future is less. So I mean the key really I think is the kids at this point. I mean I think we need to treat the adults, but we need to prevent it with the kids.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Good of the order. Huh. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean I think it's really interesting that, like you said, the government didn't say, "Hey, we've been wrong all this time." They just said, "Yeah, we've decided." And there's no new research on this, right? I mean, I don't think that the government went and said, "Let's look at all the research and then figure it out," right? I literally think that it was probably something like the meme where they're just like, flip it
Yep.
upside down. But no, I mean, I think we've talked about this exercise. We've talked about there's not real food in our food. I think the other thing that's tough is convenience, right? We're all in a hurry now,
100%.
and the convenient food is the processed food. It's not super easy to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go make myself a steak right now. It's much easier to go to McDonald's and get a burger that has hardly any meat in it.
I literally went to McDonald's like 3 weeks ago and I'm like, do you guys have salads? And they're like, no. Like, no.
You know,
And
McDonald's puts sugar on everything. There's sugar on the salads. They have salads, I think.
it's
They
probably a
put
specific type of sugar.
Yep.
So you crave only that.
Yeah. Well, and we didn't even talk about this, right? Foods are designed now to be ultra palatable, meaning that they are designed to make you eat them. They expand on what the natural taste would be, right? Like the Dorito is a prime example. Like the
Exactly.
Dorito has so much flavor that you would never get in nature, ever, right? So they're
You don't
designed
see
to
a
be.
Swiss char that's in
No,
the vending machine. You know what I mean?
no.
Like,
So they're designed to make you eat. They're also designed to be easy to digest quickly, so that you eat more of them. And they're designed to be very, very salty because salt makes you want to eat and drink even more. So
100%.
our food is designed to make us fat. Now, I get it from a business perspective. You want people to eat more and buy more of your food, of course. But we have to realize as a society that you know, eating these ultra palatable, ultra processed foods is going to lead to a lot of complications.
Cue up the song Beer and Pretzels. That's why the song's
Oh
called
yeah.
Beer and Pretzels. It's not called light beer and
Yeah.
broccoli. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
It
It was
wouldn't
funny.
flow as
We
well.
we were at an event on Friday night, and
Yep.
somebody was talking about the difference between broccoli and I think he said like a piece of candy. It's like, yeah, we're trying to sell people broccoli. Nobody wants to eat the broccoli, even though they know that it's better for them long term. They're going to live longer. They're going to feel better. They're not going to have digestive problems. They're not going to get fat. They still choose the candy over the broccoli, even though they know it's better for them. So, we have to be better at figuring out how to teach our kids. The big thing is teach our kids how to eat well on the front end so that there's less risk in the future.
Before we wrap up, who do you got on Monday?
What is
Oof.
it? Hoosiers.
What's the final score?
I think they win by 2 touchdowns. Uh,
Woo!
28-14, 35-21, something like
They're
that.
like a 9 point favorite. Nine.
I think they were 8.5. They may be 9 by this point. Yeah, they started out at 5.5. So
I'm gonna
right before they won the game, they were 5.5 point, then 7.5, now 8.5. Now I think they're 9. You're gonna what? Don't tell me you're gonna pick Miami.
you're not gonna like my prediction.
Yeah.
I just think that defense is pretty darn good. I think the defense is now we're all waiting
To
for
hear
number
what?
11 to throw some
Yeah.
interceptions.
Yes, we are waiting for Carson Beck,
Yes.
who's had an entire career of not being able to win the big
I would
game.
like to see nothing more than IU hoist that trophy on Monday because I think it's pretty special going from worst to first, right? I mean, you could say from going from worst to first. That stadium's tough. I've seen a lot of teams go down in that stadium over the last 24 months in person. And I know, so you said something very interesting earlier that they're trying to get more UM fans, Miami fans to buy
Yeah.
tickets so that they
Yep.
get those IU fans out of there because it's a
Yep.
home game.
Yep.
Um, my heart says IU, my mind says Miami
Miami.
by three, 20 to
Okay.
17.
Last second field goal. They're gonna hold IU to 17 points. I would take that bet. I would take that bet any day. There's no way they're holding IU to
I
17.
hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
All right. So what am I gonna I'll say 28-14 IU. You're saying 20 to 17
Miami.
Miami. All
Did
right.
you see by the way, before we close, did you see the map of like the United States and who is for the Hoosiers and who's for Miami? It
Uh-uh.
literally had the 305 area code was for Miami. The rest of the country was
For
IU.
IU. That
Yeah.
sounds about right. Sounds about right.
We are brought to you by the Butterfly Network. For Dr. Brian Schmutzler and Vahid Sadrzadeh. This has been Going Under Anesthesia Answered. Go Hoosiers. We'll uh
Hoosiers.
we'll see you in the next one.